Hey everybody, welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 80, High Fidelity. Before we get into the top fives and the heartbreaks, let's talk about our next episode. Christmas is coming up, and we couldn't let it pass without looking at something a little festive for the show. But what would we watch? Something about Santa? Something about elves? Rudolph, maybe? What if we take another look at A Christmas Carol? Here's the problem with all of those. If we gathered up all of the classic Christmas tales and examined every movie ever adapted from these stories, they'd all come up short, because not a single one of them was directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that point became very important to us. Maybe just me. Too important? Maybe. But I got my Christmas wish. For this holiday season, we'll be looking at the classic 1945 Barbara Stanwyck romp Christmas in Connecticut, as well as its 1992 remake starring Diane Cannon, Chris Christopherson, Tony Curtis, and directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself. Dutch, Kimball, Quaid, Conan, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I want to be clear on this point. Based on my research, this is the only feature-length movie to be directed by a Terminator. That's in 2 weeks on Tuesday, December 15th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 80, High Fidelity. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw, and this is High Fidelity, and it's been a long time.
I mean, yeah, it has. We missed an episode, life got in the way, blah, 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 blah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
We're
very sorry.
It doesn't matter. We're here.
I mean, maybe it does matter. We should apologize.
Oh, no, I was going to say the reason why doesn't matter.
It's not, it doesn't matter.
We're sorry.
We're very sorry.
Yeah. It was not our intention to miss an episode.
But we do hope you enjoyed Jaws. We actually got a lot of good feedback about people saying they enjoyed Jaws, which it warmed our hearts to hear, I thought.
I thought it was really fun to listen to again.
Yeah.
I still think that's our best episode. I mean, if I were going to make a top 5 episodes of Adapter Parish, I think Jaws would be, if not number 1, it would be in the top 5.
Yeah.
Probably number 1 chronologically.
Yeah. We often say it was our first good episode.
Yeah.
Which I think you said in the intro.
But today we're talking, well, no, but we are sorry.
We're
very sorry for missing an episode.
We try not to do it again. There were extenuating circumstances, and other than the birth of our child, this is the first one we've missed, and we will try not to make a habit of it.
Our nanny ghosted us. She ghosted us. It's ridiculous.
We had to scramble for childcare.
It's really upsetting. She kind of blew up our life for a week, but we got everything back on track, and now we're here. How did you feel about having to spend a month in the world in kind of the mode of thinking about High Fidelity, given that it was not the thing that you enjoyed the most of things we've looked at?
I know. I really wish we could have recorded and just been done a while ago, but here we are.
I'm not sorry.
I know.
And I know exactly, I like to think I know exactly what your problems are with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I'm interested to find out is it the kind of thing where we actually totally agree about the nature of the subject?
Yeah, just the disagreement is how enjoyable it is.
Yes. I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to disagree with a lot of this that you have to say.
Yeah.
But we are going to talk about High Fidelity, which is...
It's a book that we read.
It is. Yeah, no, it's a book that we read, and it's a movie that we watched, and it's a TV show that we watched,
and it's a
musical that we kind of read about, and I listened to a little bit of it. This will make more sense when we actually go through it. But, we did The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Quite some time ago.
Sorry, I know you have to do a quick, gear shift there. Yeah.
That was not what I was expecting you to say.
We did The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Would you say The Hunt for Red October, if you look at the quadrants of, audiences for movies, you've got young, old, and men and women.
Yeah.
The basic kind of quadrants.
Yeah.
Would you say that it is geared towards women at all?
Hunt for Red October?
Yeah.
No.
But did we both enjoy it?
The movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Despite that?
Yes.
Okay. High Fidelity.
Yes.
Like, High Fidelity is for guys.
Yeah.
It is. And I don't mean that in you have to be a guy to enjoy it. I mean, it's one of those things where the way it's written, I think it's written with an understanding that the audience is generally going to be men. I'm talking about the book specifically.
Yeah.
The movie, I think, less so. But the book definitely feels like it's written about a guy going, hey, guys, I'm talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think nothing illustrates that better than the fact that at one point I went to Jeremy and I was like, you know what I hate about this? I hate being inside this guy's head. This guy is awful. Do men think like this? This is terrible. And you were standing there like, I don't know, I really identify with him.
Well, that is something I want to get into.
Okay.
Because I do identify with him, but not because I fully identify with him. I don't feel like, oh, here's me on the page. That's not what I feel like.
No, I hope not.
I have kind of a general, it's not like a theory of shitty people in entertainment, but like I know how I feel about it, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But High Fidelity is a book. Do you want to we don't really have a back of the book. Do you want to try to do like a quick plot synopsis?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you could do it very quickly if you wanted to.
Okay, I'm going to do the real quick one.
Yeah.
So Rob is a guy that lives in London. He owns a record store. He is called Championship Vinyl. He is 35.
I like to think, by the way, that Nick Hornby wrote this because he came up with the name Championship Vinyl for a record store and needed to come up with a story to fit around that great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, I'm sorry.
He likes to make top 5 lists, and one of the lists that he is currently working on is top 5 heartbreaks of all time because his girlfriend has recently broken up with him, his live-in girlfriend. And we come to find out that...
I like how you name the store, but you don't name the woman.
I mean, again... This is sort of the attitude of the book.
That's projecting. Her name is Laura.
Her name is Laura.
Her name is said many times. She comes off better than anyone in the book other than maybe Liz.
Yeah. And okay, let me think about it for a second. So he decides to go back and revisit all of his top 5 heartbreaks to kind of find out why he keeps getting his heart broken over and over again, and basically uses these women to make himself feel better about himself.
Mm-hmm.
That might be editorializing.
No, I think that's in the text.
It's in the text.
Yeah.
And along the way, gets back together with his girlfriend Laura and realizes that she makes him want to be a better man.
Yep. And he needs to grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And by the end of the book, he has started to do that.
A little bit.
So one of the things I like about it, just to get it out of the way for a second, I love the arc of the character of the book because it's basically a story about an asshole who wants to be less of an asshole and begins to take the first steps at the very end of the story.
Yes, I would describe it as he's starting to think about wanting to be better.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's starting to think about her a little bit more. Anyway, we can get into it. I thought it was a really good plot synopsis.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about... let's back up for a second.
Okay.
So I mentioned Nick Hornby, who wrote this. Nick Hornby is a British writer and novelist. He's been writing since the early 90s. He wrote a number of short stories. He wrote a memoir called Fever Pitch that was all about like what it was like to be in a relationship with him being like an intense football fan.
English football.
Or rather football, not American football.
Not American football.
This was his first novel, though. This was published a couple of years later, High Fidelity was. Fever Pitch also made into a movie where it was transplanted.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just going to say, like, it seems like they always make his movies, they always transplant them to the U.S. because wasn't Fever Pitch about baseball, the movie?
Yeah. It's in Boston and about baseball.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Isn't that funny?
High Fidelity was almost in Boston, too.
Oh, was it?
I'll come back to that.
Right.
But like About a Boy, to my knowledge, is still based in England.
There you go.
So not everything.
Right. But it's just interesting.
Yeah. He actually later moved into screenwriting, too, which I think makes a lot of sense. You know, we've talked about those writers before when they write a novel and you read it and you go, maybe they weren't doing it intentionally, but they were definitely visualizing what the movie would be.
Yeah. The book is very sort of cinematic.
Yeah. I think so. But he ended up moving into screenwriting, so he wrote, here's some movies. He wrote An Education.
Okay.
Wild.
Oh.
Brooklyn.
Okay.
Those were all things he wrote. Brooklyn.
He wrote the movie Wild, the Oscar Wilde movie, or the Cheryl Strayed Wild?
The Cheryl Strayed.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, sorry. I tried
Wild
to,
without an E.
I tried to pronounce it differently, but it's really hard to do.
I'm so sorry.
Hang on. I can say the difference. So here's two movies. You tell me which is the first one and which is the second one. So the first movie is Wild. The second movie is Wild.
Is the second one Oscar Wilde?
Of course it is.
Okay.
That's the best I could do.
Okay.
But anyway,
the E is silent, so never mind. It does not matter.
Anyway, I apologize. I want to say a few things about Nick Hornby and this novel. But we were starting to talk about like the plot in a little more detail and some of the characters. You mentioned two.
Yeah.
You mentioned Rob
And Laura.
and Championship Final and Laura.
Yeah.
I mentioned Liz really quickly.
Who's Laura's best friend.
Do we want to go through some of the characters?
Yeah. So there's the two guys that work for him in the store.
Mm-hmm. Dick and Barry. And they are basically, he describes them as like he hired them for part-time and they just kept showing up every day, so he can't fire them. Yeah. They're like the music nerds that he can look down on even though he's just as bad as they are.
Yeah.
But there's like a class system where like they're losers and he isn't, even though he knows he is.
Right. And then there's Ian, who is the man that Laura has gone off with, who used to live above them.
Shacked up with.
And then there's Rob's parents. They're pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I like his parents. There's such a like, there are these such British archetypes of these like just sort of middle-aged parents. It's like in Bridget Jones, like it reminds me of her parents, or in The Trip. Remember when they go to see Steve Coogan's parents and his dad is like this total nerd?
Do they?
Yeah, remember when he takes Rob to see his parents?
In which one?
I think the first one.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Maybe
Go
you
on.
should cut this out because now we have no frame of reference.
No, it's fine.
Just these like middle-aged or older people living in the suburbs with no relationship with their kids or understanding of what their life is like in London.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what I'm kind of envisioning. They're sort of all of a piece. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just older British parents, I think, is a thing.
That was actually one of the chapters I was most looking forward to you reading because I was a little ahead of you when we were going through it.
Right.
I think like I feel like we can always say like if I am ahead of you in any of the things that we're reading for the show, it's because you genuinely don't like the thing that we're reading.
Yeah, that's probably true. You were ahead of me in Catch-22, as I recall.
Yeah, but you ended up liking that.
I did end up liking it. It took me a while.
Yeah. Did you end up liking any of High Fidelity? Like, did you derive any enjoyment from reading the book?
I mean, it's a quick read. It's not like it wasn't a slog to get
Your
through.
Favorite
like
part is that it was over
my favorite
fast.
part was that it was over fast. So let me tell you why I don't. It felt a little irredeemable to me.
Okay.
Because it's in the first person.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time in Rob's head, and I did not like Rob, and I did not want to be in his head, and I wanted to be away from him. And the book does not provide any let up to being around Rob because it's in the first person.
Yeah.
So, and I know, as you explained to me, you're not really necessarily supposed to like him. And I didn't. And therefore I didn't really like the book.
I think this is one of those things where you and I diverge a little bit because it's not like I'm going to say the unfair way to describe this situation, the way that's not true, but the easy way, the way that would be too easy to explain.
Okay.
You only like stories where you can root for the main character, and I love stories where you can root against the main character. That's like the gross oversimplification.
Yeah,
of it.
I don't think that's true at all.
But let me kind of put that out there and then roll it back a little bit, which is I think you tend to prefer stories where you like the main character, and I think I've traditionally been a little more accepting of every now and then having a story where you don't like the main character. A little more.
I don't necessarily disagree. I guess I would only say I feel like I would enjoy a story more where you weren't supposed to like the main character if it was not in the first person.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's just a lot of the main character making excuses for how terrible they are.
It's so funny because here are 3 examples, and like the other 2 maybe appropriately are pop songs. Well, I could maybe describing Randy Newman as a pop song. No, Randy Newman writes pop songs.
Okay.
Like 2 songs that I can think of that I adore that are in part or in whole in the first person, but also describing people that are not good people.
Okay.
One of them, I am an unabashed fan of Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know.
That's a great song.
It's a great song, but like everybody loves it. The thing that I love most about it is the fact that he's willing to write it in the first person and then have him, I'm saying him in quotation marks because it's not him, but it's the character he's playing in the song, to have the other singer in the song call him out on his bullshit.
Right, but that's what makes it a good song.
Right. But the fact that he's willing to put that out there.
Sure.
Like he's willing to step into that person's shoes and say, I am going to receive the ire of the listener.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, the listener is going to turn on me.
Right.
And he's willing to do that. And I think that makes really good art.
Sure.
And I enjoy that. There's a fantastic Randy Newman song. I'll link to this one because I'm sure everybody has heard somebody that I used to know. Randy Newman has a song called Shame, which I think I've played for you before.
Yeah, I think I've heard it.
I fucking love Shame.
He might have played it when we saw him.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were the youngest people.
We were the youngest people by far.
Our ages added together.
I also fell asleep because I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I don't know what to tell you.
That's fine. It wasn't the barn burner?
No.
Why did my brain find that term?
We're tired. It's the day after Thanksgiving, man. I don't know. We got a lot going on.
We had people over today.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It felt so wrong. It felt like we were it felt like the Thanksgiving police were going to knock on our door. And I'm going to tell you why we felt that it was safe to have these people over. A, there are friends that live down the street and they have been just as quarantined as we have been for the last 6 months or more. B, our kids are in daycare together, so they interact unmasked on a daily basis, which means that we are already, by virtue of the fact that our kids are together all day, in the same virus bubble.
Yeah. I'd say it's the equivalent of us hugging them once a day.
Yeah, yeah. So we felt that the risk was, if not low, at least shared between us.
Yeah, but we had people over and we ate leftovers, so I'm tired right now.
Yeah,
because I have had a lot of food today.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shame is a fantastic fucking song. I love it so much, and the character singing it is just an old guy who has been hooking up with a young lady, and it's basically him leaving her, like trying to get in touch with her. Like it's never called out as being a voicemail, but that's certainly what it feels like. He is an unmitigated piece of shit. He is a misogynist asshole towards this woman, but he also kind of unintentionally shows great vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like the things he's sharing are things that no one would want shared about themselves.
Yeah. It's
just a very raw and emotional song. And it's a piece of art about a person who, and it's intensely first person. They're trying to put you in the head of the person that is telling the story.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to walk out of it going, man, I really identify with them, because they're terrible.
No, I get it.
And that's kind of how I feel about High Fidelity.
I get it.
I love it. I went to go see a screening of it a couple of years ago that John Cusack was at. So he did an interview afterwards. And it was really cool. And someone kind of brought up like Rob being the hero of the story. And John Cusack was one of the first people to stop and say like, well, hang on, he's not the hero of the story. Like, and that's the thing I really appreciated about it, is that I know I'm skipping ahead to the movie, but I think Nick Hornby kind of felt the same way. Like he's barely a protagonist.
Yeah.
Like he is a protagonist in the traditional sense, but you're not supposed to walk out of the story thinking, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Because that's one of the things that happens through the book is Rob has so many things to say about relationships and women. And probably the most intelligent thing he says in the book is that his whole life he's been thinking with his gut. And the thing that he's figured out is that his gut has shit for brains.
Yeah.
And he's starting to figure out that he's full of shit. And when he says these things about here's what relationships are like and here's what women are like and here's what men are like, I don't think you're actually supposed to think, oh, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. You know what my favorite part of the book was? Actually, I did have a favorite part. My favorite part was, and this is kind of what you're talking about, is like being able to see him through somebody else's eyes. And there was one part in the book where that did happen. It's the part where he goes home to see his parents and they make him go to the movies with them and their friends. And he sees like this other pathetic man in his 30s also out to the movies with his parents, like with his parents buying his snacks and like taking him to the movies. And suddenly he sees himself reflected in another person and how pitiful and sad he is, and it makes him feel bad about himself. And I liked it when he felt bad about himself. Yeah. I liked that part.
It's one of the best parts. What was the other thing that was great about that chapter?
Oh, the movie they go see is Sense and Sensibility. And the funny thing is, so A, of all, a movie that we know well, but B, there's like this conversation where they say like, oh, should we go see Remains of the Day? It's the sequel to Howard's End. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And this is what I was talking about before, is I was ahead of it.
Yeah.
I was ahead of you in it. And I got to that chapter and I'm just thinking like, I don't want to tell you you're going to enjoy it, but like, I know you're going to enjoy this chapter.
Just the idea that Remains of the Day is the sequel to Howard's End, or the other way around. I don't remember. Or yeah, it was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yep. But I feel like that's the basic idea behind the book is like I said, it's a story about an asshole who like by the end thinks, okay, maybe I should try to be a better person.
Yeah.
And this is going to come up in the other versions too, but I feel like one of the other characters that makes the story interesting and makes him, I don't want to say it makes him sympathetic, but it makes him a little more palatable, is Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Because Laura's great.
Yeah.
And I think that's another, function of the fact that it's told in the first person, is that we see Laura through Rob's eyes.
Yeah.
And Rob thinks Laura is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah. I mean, he thinks she's like a sellout.
I mean, a little bit, like, but he doesn't actually think she's a sellout. He says that he occasionally calls her a sellout to hurt her.
Yeah.
And he knows that that's wrong.
Yeah.
But anytime he does it, like one of the things he does like throughout is he's very petty.
Yeah.
And when they have conversations, he does talk shit occasionally. But in this kind of confessional moment with the audience, he generally says like, I don't know why I said that. I said it just to be hurtful.
Yeah.
He never says I know that it was wrong, but that's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah. And what's her friend's name?
Liz.
And Liz is great too. Liz is obviously the best character.
Mm-hmm. Well, Liz is the one that will call Rob out on his shit.
Well, yeah.
Well, so does Laura.
Well, there's this moment where again, the parts of the book I like are the parts where Rob is forced to come to terms with his bullshit, which is like, I don't know why she left me. I don't know. Like, I just have to go back and find all my old girlfriends to see why I get my heart broken. And then Liz comes in and is like, you asshole. And it turns and he's like, okay, here
they
are the
like
things.
Go out to lunch or something.
Yeah. And he's like, here are the things that she is accusing me of. Did I sleep with someone else? Yes. Did I do it while she was pregnant? Also, yes. Like, what was the third thing? There were like 3 horrible things he did.
So she had an abortion.
Yeah.
And then his bad reaction to it.
And then, yes. And then he was shitty about it.
Yeah, he was really shitty about it. And he also borrowed money.
Oh, and he borrowed. That was the thing. I slept with someone else. I did it while she was pregnant. And I borrowed a large sum of money from her that I have not paid back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he is an asshole.
And
that's the thing. She calls him a fucking asshole. And then like at the end of the chapter, he says like, I am a fucking asshole.
Yes.
Like I'm not. There was actually one moment that, I mean, here's the thing about it that's weird is like talking about the book and talking about the movie is really one conversation because they are the same thing.
Yeah.
There's so much that's the same. Like, would you agree that of all the movie from a book, pairings that we've watched, this one kind of hews closer to the source material than most?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, it keeps a lot of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because they completely changed the location to a different country.
Yeah.
But much of the plot is similar, if not identical.
Right. And
does he go home to his parents in the movie? I don't think he does.
No, I was keeping track of things that like aren't in the movie as I was reading the book because I fucking love the movie. I've seen it for years. It's one of my favorite movies. I think it's fantastic. I saw it in the theater with my dad, which was really awkward, which we'll get into. But yeah, so there was so one of the other characters in the book that we didn't mention is Marie DeSalle, who is a singer.
She's a very important character.
She's like an American singer that Rob meets and ends up hooking up with and spending a night with. And it was actually funny that she's described as looking like Susan Day.
Yeah.
From the Partridge Family.
Because in the movie, she does not look like Susan Day.
No, but also because we just watched Little Women with Susan Day. So like we had something in our minds that we could kind of point at.
Yeah.
But they sleep together. And like in the movie, it's them sleeping together. We never see anything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, though, we see everything.
Yeah.
And we get to hear about how awkward it is the whole time.
Oh, that was the thing that I did not like hearing about at all was Rob's relationship with his penis.
It's not
I don't care to
much.
hear that. I don't care to hear that. We've read a couple of books that have men thinking about their erections or lack thereof, and I don't care to hear that.
Yeah.
That's not something that I need to be involved with.
That's fair, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But like we hear a lot about that, and also Marie's kind of in the rest of the book. There's even the great scene where like Marie and Rob and Laura are all together. And do you remember that?
Tell me.
Like basically Rob takes Laura to go see Marie, And he's like, as far as Laura knows, Maria's just a musician that I've met.
Yes.
But then when she comes up to them, Maria's going like, oh, this is the Laura. And Laura's immediately like, how does she know so much about our relationship?
Yeah.
What is going on? And you met her when we weren't together. What happened?
I see.
Like, and she never asks because she's a mature person.
Right.
You know? So that there's way more of Marie in the book. In the movie, after they sleep together, Marie just
she's
isn't
gone.
in the rest of it.
Yeah.
There's going to like a wine tasting.
Yeah.
And Rob's parents, like,
oh yeah.
like that. None of that stuff is in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about like Marie being so aspirational to him is really interesting because that's both in the book and the movie too, where he's like, I've always wanted to date a musician. Like, and he has this whole idea of what dating a musician would be like. Like, we sit around at night and we listen to their music, and like maybe she writes a song about me and we go to her concert and she plays it for me. And it's this whole thing, and it's like he finds out that she's just like a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's kind of central to his character arc.
Yeah.
As little as it is, he does have an arc.
Yeah. I just want to put a pin in that because I want to talk about it again when we talk about the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like we have said, this happens to us often, we've said a lot of things we're going to come back to. We may not pick up every single thread.
Jeremy always feels really, really bad, by the way, when he's editing and he's like, oh, we said we were going to come back to it and then we never did. And I hope that if you are out there and you ever notice that we say something that we're going to come back to and you don't need to let us know because Jeremy notices every single time.
When we did the Addams Family
he
episode,
feels so bad about it.
I literally said, Christopher Lloyd, he's good, but we'll come back to him. And at no point in the rest of the episode did we talk about how good Christopher Lloyd was in the Addams Family and Addams Family Values.
So I guess we're saying it now.
I mean, I'm not even going to go into it because that's not the episode. All I just want our audience to know is that I wanted to, and there was a lot of things I wanted to say, and I forgot.
Yeah.
But he's great.
I've gotten more and more lax about taking notes, and I think I'm going to try to be better about it because I feel like I've done the same thing, that like I think of something and then I forget about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't write it down.
It happens.
Yeah.
We're not professional podcasters.
No. Well, technically. We have the Patreon.
Pro-Am.
Pro-Am.
I would say Pro-Am.
Is that like a golf
Sure.
Pro-Am tournament?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is it football or American football?
It's golf.
Ah, yes. But the book is the book.
Yes, it is a book.
I enjoy it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
I think I needed, like, to your point, is spending a lot of time in this guy's head. I think one of the things that a movie allows you to do is kind of take a step back from that a little bit. And you get to see other people and kind of experience the world through their eyes in like an empathetic way.
Yeah.
Even though the story is told from Rob's perspective.
Yeah.
And he is still, saying everything in the first person. But also the movie just means more to me because I've seen it more. And maybe if I had read the book more, the book would mean more to me.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the book.
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny. And it was one of those things, like I was saying at the beginning, throughout the book, I was just floored by how much of a piece of shit Rob is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was enjoying it because every now and then I like a story where the main character is a piece of shit.
I mean, I know that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not often.
Yeah.
But sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times.
That's great.
But then they made a movie of it.
They did indeed.
So a couple of little backstory for this. 1995 is when the book came out. Then it immediately got optioned by Touchstone, which is part of Disney. It was developed for 3 years. Originally, Mike Newell was set to direct it.
I don't know who that is.
You sure do. He directed 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Ah.
He did not direct it.
I see.
Obviously. And it was from a screenplay by a guy named Scott Rosenberg, who kind of most famously wrote Con Air.
Cool.
And I always knew that, and I always thought that like the way that John Cusack came on board was like they met each other on Con Air. And that turns out has nothing to do with it at all. So he wrote a screenplay. His screenplay took place in Boston and apparently was very different. Like it made a lot more changes. Then one of the producers was talking to a recording executive named Kathy Nelson. She recommended John Cusack and his writing team after working with him and them on Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of came together. Mike Newell was not attached at this point, but they ended up getting Stephen Frears to direct it, who directed things like My Beautiful Laundrette, Dangerous Liaisons. He did The Grifters, which is where he met John Cusack.
Gotcha.
And so he wanted to do it so he could work with John Cusack again. He didn't even like it that much. He wasn't like, oh, I love High Fidelity. He was like, oh, work with John again? Yeah, I'll work with John again. That sounds great. He did The Queen. He directed Philomena. I've spent years calling it Philomena as a joke, and I almost did it on purpose. Florence Foster Jenkins, Victoria, and Abdul. So Stephen Frears has been around for a long time.
Yes, I've met his son, Will Frears.
Really?
Yes, he's a theater director.
Oh.
He's like our age or a little bit older.
Do you want to dish the hot goss?
No, I don't have any hot goss. I'm just letting you know.
He's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But Stephen Frears directed it. It was written by, as I said, Scott Rosenberg. He did the first draft, but then it was heavily rewritten by John Cusack and then his two writing partners, D.V. DeVincentis and Steve Pink. Apparently, this is what I found out. Apparently, they rewrote it so heavily that they actually went to Scott Rosenberg and said, hey, we didn't use your draft at all. We just rewrote everything like from the book. Would it be all right if we took your name off the credits?
Yeah.
And Scott Rosenberg said, yeah, sure, that's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
And then apparently he went back on that and said, no, you absolutely cannot do that. And
I assume he wanted the money.
Well, I'm sure. Like, I'm not saying he was wrong for doing that. I'm just saying there was drama. And apparently it had to go all the way to the WGA.
Oh,
and
no.
like apparently there's a rule that isn't in that is not true anymore. But apparently, if something was an adaptation, whoever the first writer of the adaptation had to have a credit.
Oh, geez.
Even if none of their draft was used,
Very strange.
they had to have a credit. Scott Rosenberg also credited as a producer on the TV show that came out this year.
Cool.
But none of the other people from it. So I'm not sure what that's about. But anyway, he had nothing to do with the movie.
Great.
Other than writing like a draft they never used. So a couple things. They do change the location, as you say. They move from London to Chicago. John Cusack apparently didn't want to do the fourth wall breaking because Rob addresses the camera constantly in the movie. But Stephen Frears apparently came on and said, no, we should do that. And everyone just agreed. Because John Cusack kind of felt like that's a little too much me.
Yeah.
And Stephen Frears was like, no, that's going to work. Everything I've heard about Stephen Frears directing this movie is that he just came in and was quietly confident.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. Like, he's a working director.
Right?
Yeah. He's not like an auteur.
Yeah. I like that story. Weren't we watching that interview with Jack Black where he was talking about working on the movie? And he said he was like shitting a brick the entire time because he was like, this was his biggest job he'd had at this point, and he's working with the guy who did Dangerous Liaisons and The Grifters. And he says he was getting like no direction from him. Apparently, Stephen Frears pushed for Jack Black getting the part as Barry, one of the two guys in the record store. And he said the entire time he was acting, I'll link to the interview, but he said the entire time he was acting, he would like put everything out there, and then he would look to Steven for like, just tell me I'm doing a good job, and Steven would go, so like, yeah, it was good. And so he never got any of that back.
That's too bad.
But it was like Jack Black before he was Jack Black. This is like when the world met him in so many ways. Apparently, after the premiere, there was an after party, and Tenacious D played the after party.
Oh, that's fun.
Which I think is pretty fun.
It's cute.
I'm a Jack Black fan, so he's in it. Let's run through the cast really quickly, because the whole thing is it's all the same people that we have met. So Rob, now Gordon, not Rob Fleming.
Which again, it's always weird to me when they just change something inconsequential. Like, why not keep the same last name? What difference does it make?
I don't know. Maybe Fleming felt too British to them.
Fleming? That's just a name.
Ian Fleming or something like that.
I guess.
I don't know.
I thought of Alexander Fleming, who invented the polio vaccine.
There you go.
There you go.
So he plays Rob Gordon. I'm going to try to pronounce her name correctly because she's Dutch. Ibn Khaila as Laura.
Yeah.
Well, you say pretty good. I don't know.
I mean, it's how they said it in the trailer that we just watched.
Oh, can we talk about this trailer for a second?
Yes. We have to remember to come back to the cast, but yes.
Yeah. I'm going to link to the trailer. This trailer is a bugfuck nuts stupid trailer.
It's very strange.
It is the original trailer for the movie. I remember watching it. Like, the trailer got me excited about seeing a movie. This is just not a thing that happens anymore to me, which is I've never heard of a movie. Then suddenly I see that there's a trailer for it. I see the trailer and go, I want to see that movie. And then I go see the movie. That's just not a series of events that seems to happen anymore.
Well, now we have the internet.
Me. Yeah, right? Like, I hear about these things in advance, and there's like trailers for trailers and stuff like that. I watched it again recently after we watched the movie, and my reaction was, this is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen, just in terms of presenting the movie accurately.
Those trailers that are like Midsummer recut as a romantic comedy? That's literally what this felt like. It felt like the movie. It felt like the trailer for the movie, but recut as a different type of movie.
What were the things that jumped out at you when we watched it?
I mean, it made it sound like So first of all, literally the narration said he's a successful record store owner with a large following.
He's got a
DJ.
successful business, and you went, no.
Nope.
He's got a big following.
No.
Like he used to DJ years ago, and now he hasn't done it for a long time and has a failing business.
And now he thinks he's finally found love. No, the movie starts with his girlfriend having broken up with him, and it makes it seem like it's like this weird love triangle. Like I'm not even sure what they're trying to insinuate is happening. Very strange.
It has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah.
Like at all. It's all presented as he's got a successful business. He's currently a DJ. He's got women falling at his feet. And he finally thinks he's met the one, but he's involved in this weird love triangle with her and this other guy that he doesn't care for.
And it doesn't talk anything about the whole like main plot of the movie, which is him going back to revisit these like previous like girlfriends past.
Yeah, none whatsoever. They use, like, if you've seen the movie, you can see they use shots of that.
Yeah.
Like he's on the phone calling his exes.
And like where he's like screaming in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're using pieces of it, but none of that is presented. It's an insane trailer. It's
very strange.
I was going to say I love it. I love hating it.
It's very strange.
It is a terrible trailer. So John Cusack is Rob. Eben Kyla is Laura. I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, she's great.
I think one of the things that really made her so strong in the movie, and this is, I guess, kind of a shitty thing to say because she's not nobody. She's been in a lot of movies, just
Dutch movies.
But she just felt so real. She felt like a real person because I haven't seen her in anything else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was nice seeing her alongside like John Cusack being an asshole.
Like her character, her character is, what she does for a job is she's a lawyer who used to be like a legal aid person with like pink hair and who went to rock clubs, but now she got a better job, like a higher paying job, and she has to kind of dress up and be more serious. And she felt very like I know people like that. Like she felt that's what she felt like. Like she felt very realistic as that character.
Yeah.
She didn't feel like someone, you know what it was? She didn't feel like someone very, very glamorous that he would never possibly be dating.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes.
And that's the nice thing. And that's the thing I like about John Cusack too, is that I know that I have met women especially who would cut off a finger to date John Cusack.
Yeah.
And mostly I would say 99% of that is Say Anything related.
Sure.
But he's not George Clooney.
He's not a movie star. I mean, he is a movie star, but you know what I mean. He's not like I was almost going to say he's not a romantic lead, but he is a romantic lead, but he's like an everyman.
He's a movie star the way Jimmy Stewart was a movie star.
He's an everyman.
Like he's not Cary Grant.
Yeah.
He's Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
Jimmy Stewart was not known for being this like handsome Lothario.
Yes.
John Cusack is handsome.
Yeah.
He is in movies.
Yes.
He is an actor.
I've now said the word everyman twice, and I'm going to say it again.
But he's not a heartthrob.
Right.
And that's one of the things that works for this.
Yes.
Is that he feels that way and Laura feels really real.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that makes it work. I was going to say it for the book, but I think it works a little more for the movie, that one of the things that keeps me in Rob's court, and not so much in his court, but interested in what's going to happen, is that Laura is someone, as a viewer, I could empathize with and trust because she seemed like she had her shit together.
Yeah.
So when she decides that she does want to be with Rob, my immediate reaction wasn't, I'm not going to speak for you or anybody else, but
Sure.
my immediate reaction wasn't the thing that sometimes happens in a movie where they are not selling me on their relationship at all. I don't even understand why they're together. I actually felt like they did a really good job selling me on the fact that they had a real relationship.
Yes.
And it wasn't perfect, and he was not a perfect person.
Well, I mean, I think the nice thing about it is like, so they get back together because she's feeling very vulnerable because her dad just died.
Yeah.
And it didn't make it seem like he was taking advantage of her vulnerability. It made it seem, and the book was this way too.
Yeah.
I never was mad that they got back together. It made it seem like in her moment of grief, he was the person she wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
And that triggered something in her to say, you know what? I think this is the person I want to be with. And that made sense to me.
Yeah. And that was kind of the action that made him think, I need to grow the fuck up a little bit.
Yes, because this person is now relying on me. What you were just saying about John Cusack, like just the casting,
Yeah.
I agree with.
He's kind of an everyman, I've always thought.
Cool. I agree with, and I want to come back to that point when we talk about the casting for the TV show.
Oh, no, we will.
Yeah.
We will. I'm planting the same seed that you are, sweetie.
Yes.
We're sticking in a pin in it together.
Gross.
Love you. So anyway, she's great. A couple other people, the entire rest of the cast. I think Jack Black and Todd Luizzo as Dick and Barry are fantastic. I love the two of them in it. I think Dick's really good. The whole
Do you?
Yeah, the character Dick in
Dick's
the movie.
really good. You think that?
Yeah, of course I do. He's really funny.
Yeah.
This is like the joke you're making right now is like a joke I've never seen you make, and I honestly think it's beneath you. I'm disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
The dog just farted really badly.
Oh my God. What have you been drinking?
Bourbon.
Yeah. So it's been a long day.
It's been
a long year.
I'm so tired.
They're really good. I could name specific scenes. This is one of those movies where we might disagree on this. I think it's a perfect movie. I think every line is gold. So it's not really worth talking about, oh, this line was good and this line was good and this was delivered well and this moment is good. I think the movie's perfect from beginning to end. I think it is perfectly executed. It may be about a thing that someone doesn't like very much, which is fine. It is a movie that's great that you can not like.
I didn't know you felt this strongly about this movie.
No, I think it's a perfect movie. I think there's a lot of perfect movies out there.
Okay.
It's a movie that I can't find fault with in terms of execution.
Okay. Listen, you're entitled to your opinion.
I'm just saying there's a lot of movies where I can say, well, this person wasn't good or this scene didn't make any sense.
I'm not going to argue with you.
I just think it's a perfectly put together movie. In fact, in case in point, there are deleted scenes that we watched a little bit. And there's one deleted scene that, this is going to go on a little bit of a sidebar, so I apologize in advance. I'm sorry. So, of all, deleted scenes in general. There's a thing that I have seen online, especially. I don't know if people knew this, but people are
Jeremy's
not always.
Got a rant coming.
Yeah, people aren't always super mature and thoughtful online. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea. I definitely haven't been spending a lot of time on election Twitter recently.
Hey, I have don't go on the internet. Okay. It's a bad place. Okay. It's a bad scene. Don't go there.
Okay.
I happen to go on the internet a lot, and one of the corners of the internet that I frequent is the internet of Marvel movies, because I really like the Marvel movies. And there is a thing that I see, an attitude that I see often, which is that a movie will come out, like Avengers Infinity War, and then 6 months or a year later, a deleted scene will get released before like the Blu-ray comes out. And the deleted scene will go up online, and there will be a post about it, and there will be a big thread, and there will be all of these things in the thread, all these comments that are basically saying, this scene sucks. I used to think that the writers and the directors of this movie were good. Now I know that they're not good because they created something that sucks. And that really pisses me off because it's a deleted scene. And sometimes you write something and you shoot it and you don't know it's not going to work until you finally have it put together. And then you, as a creator, have this amazing choice at your disposal. You can choose to not put it in your movie if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's my rant, is that's bullshit, because when you see a deleted scene that sucks, that should make you respect the filmmakers even more, because they weren't so caught up in their own ego that they weren't able to say, no, we should cut this because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's my rant about deleted scenes.
I hear you.
There's a deleted scene that I think fundamentally does not work, and I am so glad they cut it. And it's based directly on dialogue that's in the book, which is right after Rob tells the entire story that ends with him going, I am a fucking asshole because of all these things I did that are true. In the book, Rob talks to the audience and goes on this rant of basically like those in glass houses, blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
All of you, think of the worst thing you've ever done to anyone, like to the person you're in a relationship with. And it's so defensive.
Yeah.
Intensely
No,
defensive.
I remember that because I was like, no, I never have done anything like that.
Like, I get what he's saying. I understand the point, but it comes off as, I think, the shittiest thing he says in the book.
Yeah.
Because it's just so utterly defensive.
But I remember the point you're talking about because it actually did make me stop and think. And I was like, no, what? No.
Like not that bad.
Not that bad. I yelled at you once a little bit.
Yeah. They shot that scene.
Yeah.
And it comes off as even more defensive.
Yeah.
And it really pit me against Rob in that moment. Like, he just sounded like a whiny child, not an adult asshole who's trying to do a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it really just goes over the line. It's not like he felt like a totally different character, but it just pushed it a little too far, and it just took away what little empathy I had for the character at that point. It took away the enjoyment I was having in it. They cut it. Because it, like, I don't know.
I get it. No, I hear what you're saying.
And they cut it and it doesn't work, and I'm really happy that they cut it. I think I want to go through the rest of the cast. And in order to do that, we need to talk about 4 different characters that we like kind of mentioned in passing, but we need to talk about them specifically.
These are like the ghosts of girlfriends past.
Yeah, the other 4 on his list of top 5 heartbreaks.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. He says he has a top 5 and he's being petty and says that Laura wouldn't even make the top 5. And of course she's in the top 5 because he loves her.
Right.
So he the ones we don't really need to talk about, like, because it just ruins the jokes. Like Joel Carter is Penny Hardwick, Lily Taylor is Sarah Kendrew. Let's talk about Catherine Zeta-Jones as Charlie Nicholson.
Oh my gosh. This actually was maybe something I could relate to more than anything, which was he dated this woman. She was very intense. She was very like artsy and had a lot to say. And he just felt like she was way out of his league and was just like amazed that she had any time for him. And he was like under her spell, right? And when he goes back to look her up, you know, they broke up and it was really heartbreaking and she left him for someone else and all this. And when he goes back years later, his immediate, like, he listens to her talking and then he goes over and she's having this party and her friends are there. And his immediate reaction was like, oh, she's awful. And I have absolutely, not necessarily about like romantic partners in my past, but like certainly friends like that I was trying so hard to impress or to be with or to be around, like just people in the world. And like you look back and go like, oh, that person's terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that is a very universal feeling for anyone that's ever kind of felt inferior to a friend.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It totally does.
Yeah.
It's one of the best scenes in the movie. It's so good.
It's great.
They made a choice when they were writing it that I really enjoyed, because in the book, he has kind of 2 revelations. And he has one when he's talking to her on the phone, and then he has the other one later when he goes to her house for the party. Because the first revelation he has is that she's awful.
Yeah.
When they're on the phone, he realizes like, oh, Charlie's awful. But then when he's at the party, he kind of talks about how specifically she doesn't listen to people and says stupid things. In the movie, I think they made a really smart choice to combine those 2 moments.
Yeah.
Where he says both of those thoughts at the same time at the party.
I guess I'm thinking of the movie, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, both the thoughts are in the book. They're
Yeah.
just kind of at different times.
Right.
And I just think that's a really smart choice. I think that's a really good way to condense things down.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to kind of the broader idea of looking at this as an adaptation, because it really is just an abridgment of the book.
Yeah.
They just went through and said, we like this line, we like this line. Everything in between we need to shorten down to 30 seconds so that we can keep those lines.
Yeah.
Because there's so many direct readings. Even Nick Hornby, when he went to go see it, he says, I love John Cusack in it, but maybe that was just because I liked seeing him read my book on screen. Like, I think he has a sense of humor about it too. But yeah, everything with the exes, I thought really tested the limits of what an audience is willing to accept on the part of his behavior. Because like one of the worst ones is when he goes to see Penny Hardwick, and she was the one that they dated in high school.
Yeah.
And he dumped her because she wouldn't put out.
Right.
And then she immediately put out with someone else. And then he goes out with her and says, like, why'd you dump me for this guy? And she tells him, like, A, you dumped me.
Yeah.
And
if you recall.
Yeah. And I was heartbroken and did something terrible that I regretted for years that really negatively affected my life.
Yes.
So fuck you. And she walks out. And his immediate reaction is, she's right. I dumped her. I bear no response. This had nothing to do with me. This is great. I should have done this years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think it's the worst he is in the movie.
Yeah, he's
in
terrible.
that moment. Like, I love Penny. Penny's one of my favorite characters. She's such a good person.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that she never ended up with him, because she deserves so much better.
Yes.
But that whole sequence is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it.
Do you want to talk about Marie DeSalle?
I would love to talk about Marie DeSalle.
So this is going to be very important actually leading into the TV show.
Well, can I say a quick thing about the way she's described in the movie?
Sure.
Because Dick comes to
This
Rob's
is
apartment,
funny.
and he says, yeah, she's got kind of a blah, blah, blah Susan Day type thing going on, but, you know, black. Because it's Lisa Bonet.
Because it's Lisa Bonet of The Cosby Show.
And the thing about it is, like, there's no Susan Day in
she
her
doesn't look
at
anything
all,
like Susan
but
Day.
it is a nice little reference to the book.
Yeah, it's just an inside joke.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is interesting the way that they did the casting here, and I think I like it, because in the book, the idea that he's sleeping with an American is very exotic.
Yeah.
Right? So the way that they did
Not
it,
just a musician.
not just a musician, but an American musician. So in the movie, of course, everyone's American. So it's like, oh, I'm not just sleeping with a musician, but a black musician, which is shitty, right? But like, he is shitty. It is shitty to exoticize people in this way.
And to be clear, he never says that.
But that's the implication.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's not specifically said.
No, but I think it is like textual.
Yeah.
And she's just this cool musician that does cool covers of like old songs. It's
Peter Frampton.
It's Peter Frampton. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it in the book? She does.
No, it's Peter Frampton in the book and the movie.
Oh,
but
right,
then
right,
it's
right.
Boys to Men in the show.
Yes, I was thinking of Boys to Men. I was like, wait, when does Boys to Men enter into it?
Which is perfect.
Yeah.
But that's the thing we'll talk about.
We'll talk
in a
about it later.
Bit.
Yeah, she's not as big of a part. Like in the book, she's kind of in it all the way through it.
Yeah.
And this is like they just kind of sleep together, and he's like, "Oh, this is cool," and she's like, "Yeah, this was fun. Bye." And he kind of, I don't know, I guess, what do you think it means to him that he like slept with her without having to immediately like form a relationship with her?
I think it meant nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing he finds out, is that he expects these things to have meaning, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have meaning. And that's the childish part of him, is
Right.
he thinks that all of these superficial things are going to have meaning. He thinks it's going to have meaning to have this many albums, and it's going to have meaning to have a record store, and it's going to have meaning to sleep with a musician. But eventually what ends up happening is he realizes it doesn't have meaning. Like what has meaning is the way he makes another person feel.
Yeah.
And that's his relationship with Laura.
Yeah.
That's the gross oversimplification of it. But I think he figures out that it means nothing.
I can agree with that.
It's just a chance for him to embarrass himself.
Yeah, not to get too personal, but I kind of had a similar experience to that before we were together.
Did you sleep with Lisa Bonet?
No, but I did sleep with some. I did briefly date someone who's, I'll tell you off air who it was, but I did briefly date someone who was like kind of a local celebrity, like in the Boston music scene.
Really?
Yeah. And like it was the same kind of thing. It's like, oh my God, we're gonna like be this cool couple and like go to these shows and do this thing, and it's like it means nothing. Like they're just a person. Do you know what I mean? Like it has nothing to, like, their behavior outside of like their job that they have has nothing to do with like the person that they're casually dating for a minute.
I for a minute I thought I didn't know who you were talking about, and then I remembered that there was a certain venue we couldn't go to for years.
Yes,
because
correct.
we might run into this person.
Yes, this is correct.
I remember.
We don't talk about it on
How
there.
do you feel about your choices?
I feel great.
Yay! We've got a kid. He's really cute.
He's great.
It's great. Yeah. What else to say about this movie? There are two more points I wanted to make about the movie before we move on to the musical and spend a minute talking about it. So one, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this, and kind of in a larger sense. Let's talk about what makes breaking the fourth wall work in a movie, because I feel like it doesn't always work, and it's in a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows. Is that a little more than you can than you want to deal with right now with the drink that you have in you?
I didn't know we were going to get philosophical about cinematography.
No, it's not. A, not philosophical. B, not about cinematography. It's about creative choices. It's more acting than anything else.
I just had a really strong drink on like a very empty stomach. I love you. We
it's
didn't eat dinner because we were eating leftovers all
I
day.
want to do this. I want to do our show.
I'm
Can we
sorry.
do our show?
Yes.
But no, really though, I think that it's used a lot and it doesn't always work. Sometimes it works incredibly well. So what's an example you can think of someone breaking the fourth wall in a movie that is like generally respected and works very well?
I'd like to direct your attention to a conversation we just had off air.
Would you like to reenact it? Can you think of one, or do you want me to feed one to you?
Oh my God, you're putting me on the spot. What's wrong with you?
That's a really shitty, that's not what you sounded at all like.
Oh wait, never mind. I thought of one. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, do you want me to feed you one?
No, I was just thinking of one. I just thought of Ian McKellen and Richard III. What were you gonna feed me?
Oh, I was gonna feed you Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They're basically the same. And scene. That's what happens when we're off air, and then we do it on air.
Cool.
But no, talk about that for a second. Like, what makes that work? I mean, that's Shakespearean. Like, it is.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the Shakespeare like directly addresses the audience frequently. It's a thing that he does.
Let me ask you this: when a character was directly addressing the audience, especially in Richard III,
Yeah.
and I think you come up with a perfect example of it,
God.
because I do think it really compares well to High Fidelity. Because is Richard the hero of Richard III?
No, he's not a hero. He's a bad man.
But in his mind, is he? I know that Richard doesn't think himself that he's the good guy.
Yeah.
But he certainly is the hero in his own mind.
Sure.
Right? And I think that that's actually a much better example than Ferris Bueller's Day Off is.
Thank you.
But,
I don't know that anyone's ever compared Richard III to High Fidelity before.
who knows?
Who can say?
Who can say? But like, I do think that one works really well. I think Ferris Bueller works really well, but I don't think it always works well. High Fidelity is like my number one example.
Yeah.
I love it, and I think the thing I love about it is just how consistent it is. It's not one of these things where sometimes it's breaking the fourth wall, but then you can go 20 minutes and forget about that. Rob is constantly addressing the camera, which could be too much, but I think the thing they have going for them is the fact that A, the dialogue is snappy as hell, and B, John Cusack is great.
Yeah.
I think he is the perfect person to deliver these lines, and I think that's what makes it work. And is that all it is? Just like, make sure the writing's good, make sure the acting is good, and
yeah,
there
I mean,
you are.
That's a lot.
That's it.
That's a lot to make sure of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is.
Those are important.
It is a
Yeah,
lot
for
to
sure.
make sure
You're
of.
not wrong.
No, I guess I just say all of this to say, like, I think this is one of those great examples of when breaking the fourth wall works.
Yeah.
And I think those are the reasons that it works. And I think the constant nature of it is one of the things that makes it work, not one of the things that works against it.
Yeah.
I think if it was less, it would work against it.
Mhm.
So I'm happy about that. The other thing, too, is the movie makes a big addition to the story.
Mhm.
So one of the things that happens in the book is towards the end of the book, Rob starts to get his shit together a little bit because he used to DJ,
Right.
but he hasn't in a long time.
Right.
And Laura kind of gets the impression from him he'd like to do it again. So she organizes a big show, a big night for him to DJ again. And he gets mad about it because he's like, what if I had plans? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you don't have plans, you can't cancel. And so they have the night and it's great. And he looks at her and goes like, this is a person that cares about me.
Yes.
So I want to be a better person.
Yes.
The movie, though, makes some changes to that.
Yeah. Because the hoodlums aren't in the book at all, right?
No, the hoodlums are not.
So there's
Vince and Justin.
So there's these hoodlums that are trying to shoplift from his store. And when they go and chase them, it turns out that they have a band and their band is pretty good. And he wants to put out their record.
Yeah.
And so
on a whim, he decides.
On a whim. And then Laura, hearing of this, decides to throw them like a big record release party where Jack Black's band is going to play as the opener. Right? Is that
kind of midway through the evening.
An accurate description?
Yeah, it is an accurate description.
Yes.
And then Sonic Death Monkey plays Let's Get It On.
Yeah. They play the old standards.
Yeah. And they're great.
Yes.
They're great. That was my first introduction to Jack Black singing. And it was just a wonderful moment.
Yes.
Because he's great. Jack Black, something else he did is going to come up again soon too. I guess the whole thing is, I'm sure they were looking at it and going, Rob needs to get his mojo back, but we have to do it in a way that's a little bit bigger. It has to be a bigger decision.
Yeah. And
I think it's smart. I actually like this better than the book.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we talk about this a lot with like book to movie is like you have to raise the stakes sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot and is pretty common. In the things we've seen.
And I think it's really appropriate here.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough. The book just kind of ends. The book kind of peters out. But one of the things I like about the movie is that the movie does build in the last half hour.
Yeah.
And I think it ends on a pretty, like, I'm going to call it triumphant. It's like the least on the scale of things being triumphant. It's all the way towards the minor side of it.
Yeah.
But still, it feels like something has happened. It feels like he has gotten over something. It feels like he has now, for the first time in his life, helped create something and bring something into the world. But also, he started to see what Laura means to him.
Yeah.
And what he can do to be better for her.
Yeah.
And I love the end of the movie. Like, can I read the last, like, line of the movie?
Sure.
So he's making a mixtape.
Yes, he does that a lot.
And he's doing it for Laura.
The making of a great compilation tape, like breaking up, is hard to do and takes ages longer than it might seem. You got to kick it off with a killer to grab attention. Then you got to take it up a notch. But you don't want to blow your wad, so then you got to cool it off a notch. There are a lot of rules. Anyway.
Jack Black's band is singing, everybody's dancing, and it's it's shot exactly the way that Nick Hornby describes it in the book, because in the book he describes it as being the final scene of a movie. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this character's here and this character's here. It's all the characters we've met over the course of the movie.
Sure.
But then they do it for real, which I just think is so much more effective to do that in a movie than to read someone in a book telling me that a movie would do it.
Yeah.
Like they don't, Rob doesn't need to say it because it's actually a movie.
Right.
But then everything quiets down and it just goes back to him in his apartment talking about Laura.
Yeah.
And it's this perfect way to end the movie. And then Stevie Wonder's, I believe, When I Fall in Love starts playing.
This is true.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I fucking love this movie. I went to see this in the theater with my dad, and there is a scene in the movie where Laura takes off her underwear in a car and climbs off top of Rob to have sex with him. And it is just very blunt, and it just kind of happens.
That's awkward.
And I was sitting next to my dad as the 17-year-old lad, and it was no fun. I didn't like that at all. What's the most awkward thing you've ever watched with your parents?
Oh, I can tell you for a fact.
You can beat this. I'm sure you can beat this.
Yes, I absolutely can. I went to see the Broadway show Take Me Out with my mother.
Okay.
It is about baseball. There is a scene
Seems
that takes place in a locker room.
Seems fine.
They shower on stage. There are 8 fully nude men on stage showering at the same time, and I was sitting next to my mother.
All 8 of them were hanging dong?
Yep, hanging full dong live on stage, and my mother had a comment about one of their pairs of balls.
Don't ever tell me what she said. Don't ever do it. Oh, shit.
Did I beat your story?
I didn't think you couldn't. That's amazing. Oh,
Didn't even have to think about it. Not for a second. The worst moment of my life.
I'm like offended that we've been together 7 years and you've never told me that story. Why would you keep that from me?
I don't know when it would possibly have come
Oh
up.
my God. Well, anyway, here's the deal. That ended up being a better segue than you could have planned for because we're going to leave the movie theater and we've got to go over to the stage because they we always talk about, the they who make everything. They decided that High Fidelity should be a musical.
I hate this shit.
Do you know who disagreed?
Me.
Audiences disagreed. They said it should not be a musical.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So let's talk about this piece of shit.
Oh, I didn't listen to this at all. You played me like 2 minutes of the first song, and I was like, God damn it, all musicals sound the same. And that was pretty much my commentary.
I love musical theater, but there's just it's a trend. It's a specific voice that maybe I'm unfairly like taken against, but it's there, and it's just the style of singing. It's always a young man singing. I don't know if there's a word for
scream
it.
Singing.
Scream singing, but like there's something about the over enunciation of it where they're always singing like this. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
I hate it. I fucking hate it so much. And I know that Dear Evan Hansen is good, and everyone loves Dear Evan Hansen, and I'm sure if I listened to it, I would also cry, but I can't get over that because that's so much of it. But no one come at me and tell me that Dear Evan Hansen is actually good because I know it's good. I believe you. I believe everybody, but I can't do it.
Don't at me.
Anyway, High Fidelity's full of that shit, and
Yeah.
it's like totally inappropriate for it. The people that made it, music by Tom Kitt. I found out he worked with
He did Next to Normal.
Yeah, I have that right here. He did Next to Normal.
Thank
he
you.
did If Then.
Thank you.
SpongeBob SquarePants. Did you know that there was a Dave musical?
No, I didn't actually know that.
The Kevin Kline movie, Dave?
I actually did not know that.
And that actually, quick sidebar, I've been trying to get you to watch this movie for 4 years, but you wouldn't because it's political.
Yeah.
And the last 4 years have made you too sad. So maybe in January, after Joe Biden is inaugurated, is that, fingers crossed, obviously, barring shenanigans, that we can actually watch Dave for the first time.
Maybe so.
And you get to watch Frank Langella play a piece of shit. It's everything you ever dreamed of.
I will watch it with you on Inauguration Day.
Will you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so fucking excited that you said that.
Yes.
I love you so much. I love Dave. I didn't know it was a musical. I don't see how that would work given that one of the, cruxes of it is that, Kevin Kline plays 2 parts. So I don't know how that works in a musical.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, they must have figured it out, or they didn't because
there's
successful.
there's a Jekyll and Hyde musical, so I have to think they did it in a similar way.
Yeah, but it's not one person playing 2 parts. It's not one character who becomes another character.
He's on screen at the same time.
Yes,
I see what you're
which
saying.
Kevin Kline has experience with.
Right in
Fierce Creatures and Wild Wild West.
Yeah,
he did the same
Why
thing.
is it always Kevin Kline doing that?
Because he's good at it.
Yeah, Fierce Creatures is a great movie, highly underrated film.
Yeah.
I love Fierce Creatures. I like it better than Fish Called Wanda.
I feel like you could divide the world into 3 sections. There's the people who haven't seen Fierce Creatures, there's the dum-dums that saw it and didn't think it was good, and then there's the rest of us. Fierce Creatures is great.
Great.
Yeah. Sorry if I inadvertently called any of you dum-dum. We love you.
We are off the rails.
It's totally fine. He also did all the orchestrations for Jagged Little Pill.
We have a whole TV show to talk about,
which
we're
gonna be fine. And Jagged Little Pill, which did nothing for me. I know people like it.
Jagged Little Pill?
Yeah.
The musical?
Yeah.
Did you watch the actual musical?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay, because the album is like the best.
Oh, no, the Alanis Morissette album
Yes.
is amazing.
Yes.
What I have seen of the musical has done the opposite of impress me.
I'm so sorry.
Lyrics by Amanda Green, book by David Lindsay Hebert. He did Rabbit Hole and Shrek the Musical.
I knew that, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yes.
And apparently all these people also worked with Lin-Manuel Miranda on, I want to say Bring It On, the musical.
Okay.
Which I didn't know he worked on.
Fair enough.
All right, I want to read this thing from Wikipedia. Premiering in Boston in 2006, the musical eventually moved to Broadway, opening on December 7th, 2006 at the Imperial Theater.
Did it premiere at ART? It doesn't say.
I'm reading a quote
I'm
from
sorry.
Wikipedia.
I'm so sorry.
I don't have any more information than what is in the quote.
I'm so sorry. I'm just curious about the Boston thing. Go ahead.
It opened on Broadway in 2006 at the Imperial Theater. The show received mixed reviews and closed on December 17th, 2006 after 18 previews and 13 performances.
That's not very many.
That's not enough.
That's not enough.
It's not enough performances.
Generally,
I'm pretty sure.
Generally, that when you have more previews than performances, that tends to be a bad thing.
I'm pretty sure that when you try to make a Broadway show, one of your goals.
That's really bad.
Yeah.
That means it ran for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's really bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
no.
I listened to half of it.
Community theater runs longer than that.
Yeah. I listened to half of it. I couldn't get any further than that.
Yeah.
I hated it so much for multiple reasons. I'm going to talk about these reasons. There's like 3 of them. I'll talk about them from order of least offensive to most offensive. One, Weird Al Yankovic has a song called My Baby's in Love with Eddie Vedder. You remember that song?
I do recall
it. Was
it.
on Running with Scissors.
I know.
It's a great song.
I know it.
There is a song in this that's clearly about him sleeping with Marie DeSalle called I've Slept with Someone Who Slept with Lyle Lovett.
Oh, God.
Which is a total fucking ripoff of My Baby's in Love with Eddie Vedder.
I'm sorry. And also in the book, it's specific. She talks about like her ex, and it's like someone he's heard of, and he's like, it's not Lyle Lovett, but it's someone on that level.
Right.
So
they might be
shitty.
making. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. If
Yeah.
they're saying it actually was. There's one part in the song that annoyed me because it was actually super super funny, but like didn't necessarily need to be in a high fidelity show. Which is that he basically connects her to Kevin Bacon through like people that people have slept
Oh,
with.
God.
It's like she slept with Lyle Lovett. He slept with Julia Roberts. She was in this with so and so, who was in this with Kira Sedgwick, who's married to Kevin Bacon. And then it just doesn't. It was pretty funny. I enjoyed it. It was witty. But the music on the whole is terrible.
Yeah.
And I have a reason for thinking that it's terrible. I think it's really dangerous to write a musical about music when you can't use that music.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned Jack Black before. School of Rock, I think, is a wonderful movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a wonderful movie about a man sharing music he loves with kids who've never heard it before.
Yeah.
So when in the movie he shares Led Zeppelin with them for the first time, the audience can bring their own experience of when they heard Immigrant Song for the first time.
Okay.
And
I think I know where you're going with this.
And it makes it really connect. Where do you think I'm going with this?
I think you're saying that Andrew Lloyd Webber doesn't know how to write rock and roll.
Like, if you're going to do a School of Rock musical, but you can't actually use the songs that are in the movie School of Rock and you have to write original songs, it completely removes the essential piece of the show, of the movie, which is that it's someone sharing rock music that they love with kids.
Uh-huh.
It's bullshit. And Andrew Lloyd Webber writing a School of Rock musical is the least rock and roll thing I've ever heard. Yeah. And I am against it. I'm firmly against it. I think it's horse shit. But I don't understand what makes people look at something like this and go, music is incredibly important to this piece. Like High Fidelity, music plays such a key role in the movie. Not music as a concept, specific music, naming bands, playing songs. They're so integral to the plot and to the characters. And they're mentioned constantly in the book. You don't even hear them in the book because it's a book, but they're mentioned constantly. Mm-hmm. To then turn around and say, we're going to make a musical, all original music, you've lost one of the strongest points of the story, of the entire setting. Yeah. Like, it didn't actually end up mattering that much that they moved it from London to Chicago, because the physical location didn't actually have that much to do with the story. But music actually does have something to do with the story.
Right. I don't disagree. Do you have anything about the cast of
No,
the musical?
I
Because I
don't.
noticed, I don't know who she played, but I noticed when you were listening to it that Jen Kalela was on the credits.
Oh, yeah?
Do you know who she was? She Laura? Do you know who she was?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, because she's really cool. She was in Come From Away.
Oh, yeah.
And she is one of the I think she's amazing, and she has an amazing song in Come From Away that makes me cry every single time. She plays the captain, like the female pilot. And Come From Away is the musical about the plane that got grounded in Canada. The planes that got grounded in Canada on 9/11. And how
I've always wanted to see it.
Little town had to take them in. We probably will be able to see it someday. It's pretty popular. But anyway,
Someday when we can go to the theater.
She is
again.
one of the two public figures, like celebrity figures that I know of that are out as being in thruples, like her and Tilda Swinton.
Oh yeah,
which I think
yeah.
is really cool. I just think it's neat to kind of normalize that.
This is a story we've told on the show before, but I just want to talk about the fact that we were driving down the street in Manhattan at one point.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about how it's cool. You can just see celebrities all around.
Well, we looked up and there was Tilda Swinton on a billboard.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, it's a billboard. We're in Manhattan. Tilda
and then
Swinton.
wearing a gold tracksuit.
We looked up there she was on the billboard, and we looked down and there she was walking down the street.
In a gold tracksuit.
Tilda Swinton.
Looking fucking gorgeous and amazing.
Just going into her apartment building.
Yep.
Crazy.
Tilda Swinton. She's great. Anyway,
it was cool. It was a cool celebrity sighting.
I'm offended by the decision to even make a musical of High Fidelity that isn't a jukebox musical. Like, I'm not going to say jukebox musicals are great, but like, if you're going to do High Fidelity, that seems to be the time when you would do it. So how about we just don't? There's literally a line from the book and the movie. Maybe it's slightly different in the book and the movie that I think about, but it goes back to making compilation tapes that I think absolutely expresses why the musical shouldn't have been made, which is this line. Now, the making of a good compilation tape is a very subtle art. Many do's and don'ts. First of all, you're using someone else's poetry to express how you feel. This is a delicate thing. They're basically saying there the importance of using someone else's music to communicate how you feel to another character. That's what a High Fidelity musical should be. So either do it that way, or
literally, like, what better opportunity to do a jukebox musical than like what better subject matter than something that's about mixtapes?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It
just is so frustrating to me. I don't have anything else to say about the show.
I didn't listen to it. I'm going to, full disclosure, you were just in here bopping along listening to it.
Can I give you some homework?
Sure.
What's the actress's name?
Jen Kalela?
Can you find out who she played in it, and I'll put it in the show notes?
Sure.
Cool. Great. That's your only homework. All right. You want to talk about a TV show?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So I would say it was a bad idea to make the musical. I think it was a better idea to make a TV show. And that TV show came out this year on Hulu.
It did.
And it was announced a couple of years ago. It was in development, originally developed by Disney for their forthcoming streaming service,
Disney
which eventually
Plus.
became Disney. Well, even at the time, it didn't have a name.
I see.
Then it became Disney Plus. That did not happen.
There's boobs in this show.
Yeah, there's boobs and swearing. And at some point when they were developing it, Disney said, well, we also own Hulu. How about we shift it over there instead?
Makes more sense.
I think it's a better fit.
It's not family friendly.
So it was developed by two women, Veronica West and Sarah Kucerka. Kucerka? Kucerka. Kucerka. I'm going to say Kucerka.
Cool.
It was also executive produced by Zoe Kravitz, who plays Rob Brooks.
Yeah.
We go from Rob Fleming to Rob Gordon to Rob Brooks.
A lady, Rob.
A number of other people are in it, but let's start with Zoe Kravitz right now. Maybe it makes sense to just talk about her generally as Rob, but also a little bit about how the story changes, given the fact that it takes place over a 10-episode kind of half-hour show, which also got canceled, which means this is all we're going to talk about. We watched the season, and it's not the first season. It is the only season.
And we kind of thought that it was going to be sort of similar to like Handmaid's Tale, that like the first season would be the book, and then like the idea would be they would go from there. But it kind of wasn't. Like it wasn't the whole book. I would say it was a lot of the book, but It feels like they thought they would have more time.
Yeah, I agree. It's skipping ahead for a second. Like, I think the most frustrating part of the show is that one actor was cast who is a Tony-nominated, Broadway singer.
Yes.
Performer.
As the Jack Black part.
Yeah. This was Divine Joy Randolph as Charisse.
Yes.
Not Barry.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole season thinking we're going to get to see her sing.
I thought it was going to be like the climax of the show.
And it is.
She sings a little.
Like, we're spoiling it.
Yeah.
I assume of our listeners, fewer people have seen the High Fidelity TV show than maybe have seen the movie.
Yeah.
She does sing quietly to herself in the record store.
Yeah, I thought she was going to get like a big knockout performance
Yeah.
at the end, because I have seen clips of this lady on YouTube and she can sing.
Mm-hmm. I was excited to find out I actually knew her from something.
Do you?
She played a pretty pivotal role in Dolomite Is My Name last year.
I don't know what that is.
Is a Netflix movie about the making of the movie Dolomite, starring Eddie Murphy
Okay.
as Rudy Ray Moore,
Okay.
who played Dolomite.
I don't. Okay.
Do you know anything that I'm talking? Eddie Murphy.
Absolutely not. I know who Eddie Murphy is.
Okay, cool. We can start there.
Great.
Dolomite is a super fun movie.
Okay.
Dolomite Is My Name is also a super fun movie, but
Okay.
she plays a pivotal role in that. She was really good.
Great.
And I remember her from that. She's great. But anyway, backing up for a second. So the show itself makes some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest is casting Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah.
In the part of Rob.
As a lady.
What'd you think?
Okay. Couple things.
Mhm.
One, it's stunt casting because Zoe Kravitz's mom is Lisa Bonet.
Ha Who's her dad? Not that it matters in the context of High Fidelity.
Leonard J. Kravitz, a lawyer from Philadelphia.
Yes. Her dad's Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah. So,
Because
A,
he said, "Are you going to go my way?" And Lisa Bonet said, "Long
Yeah.
enough." Yes, definitely.
Yes, I will bury your
Yes.
child.
Yes, let's bury
Um,
your beautiful, beautiful child.
So it is cool that this movie is not solely about white people. I
Mhm.
do like, or this TV show, I do like that. I think it's neat. And not solely about straight people either, which we'll get into, I guess,
Yep.
in a minute. And all those things are very good. Those are good things.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I don't know. So what we were constantly being told about this character, like how sad she was and pitiful and nerdy and like this big music nerd and loveless and et cetera, I found it hard to reconcile with the fact that she was being played by Zoe Kravitz. Objectively a very cool person.
Yes, also stunningly attractive.
Is that fair?
I think so.
Is that unfair? I feel bad about being like Zoe Kravitz is too pretty to be this part. But like this was the thing I wanted to get back to.
Mhm.
The thing where it really, really resonated for me was when she was doing the whole thing about how she's always wanted to date a musician and how she always thought it would be so cool to date a musician and she could never date a musician because musicians are so cool and she's not cool. It's like, this is a musician's girlfriend. Like, I'm looking at you. This is the kind of person who dates musicians. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to date a musician, you, Zoe Kravitz, obviously you can date. There is nothing about you physically or mentally that I'm seeing in this show that would preclude you being cool enough to date a musician.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't believe you that you can't get a musician.
Like, even the way it's presented. So in the book, in the movie, Rob ends up sleeping with Marie DeSalle,
Mhm.
who's always presented as a little he looks at her as being a little unattainable.
Yes.
And he's so proud of himself because turns out she is attainable.
Yes.
Like in the book, it turns out she's just a person.
Yeah.
And in the movie, she's still
Kind of unattainable.
kind of unattainable, but she just had a whim that night.
She had a whim.
Yeah, and that's kind of why she goes away in the story.
Yeah.
She's still kind of mysterious and enigmatic, but she goes away.
Yeah.
In this one, they've replaced Marie DeSalle with Liam Shawcross,
Mm-hmm.
who's played by a guy named Thomas Doherty, who's Scottish and adorable.
Yes. And he's like 19.
Yeah. And the thing that gets changed is that he's really into her and he's pursuing her. The problem she has is that he's like 10 years younger than her.
Yeah.
But it completely flips the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, she's absolutely attainable. Like, it's made perfectly clear that he is happy to sleep with her.
Yeah.
He tries to and she leaves and then she ends up going back and sleeps with him again, like, and actually sleeps with him.
Yeah.
It's It's totally reversed.
Yeah. And I mean, there are a couple things about the gender being reversed that is odd. First of all, like when she goes through her catalog of exes, some of her exes are men and some are women.
One is a woman.
Which is cool, which is neat. And the whole scene where she goes back and she's like, "Oh, this person's terrible," is actually cool because like they've modernized it and it's now she's like an Instagram influencer.
Yeah.
And like people know who she is. Like Charisse knows who she is. Which is cool. And it is nice that they're to see sort of representation of someone who is confidently bisexual, but the plot is not about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just like, oh no, this is just a thing. Like I date men, I date women. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I think that's totally legitimate. I think that's very cool.
Because you were mad about it at first.
Well, I was mad. No, that's not what I was mad about.
Yeah.
I was mad. So one of her exes is Simon, who works with her at the store, and this is the Dick character in previous incarnations, right? Like the really like weedy music nerd, and it turns out that they used to date, but he looked at a guy one time, and it turns out he's gay.
That is, I think, a mischaracterization of what happens in the story.
Okay, well, that was the impression that I got. So I got a little bit angry because the way it was portrayed was basically he suddenly got attracted to one man one time and he realized he was absolutely 100% gay. And so what I said to you was, and then they immediately had to break up. So what I said to you is, I don't understand why she can be so confidently bisexual, but he's immediately gay if he has an attraction to one man one time. And it's okay that he's gay. Like it turns out that he's gay, but like that was the way that it was portrayed as him suddenly realizing he was gay was the thing that I had a problem with.
Yeah, I think the thing that made it better for me is that later when you find out more about what happened, like I hate myself for using this term to define what this TV show felt like because we're talking about High Fidelity. So I apologize in advance. This really felt like a remix where they took a lot of pieces of it and they just mixed them around.
Yeah.
So like he is the Dick character, but is way more confident and interesting. So he's not that character anymore. He's just kind of filling that role. He's the other person at the store who isn't the bombastic out there one. And he also happens to be on her list of heartbreaks.
Yes.
Which, like, even when she's presenting it, it doesn't feel like it should be in her top 5 list of heartbreaks ever.
It sounds like they had a they dated and then it turns out he's gay and they had a very sweet breakup that was mutually understandable.
Because a later episode comes when he kind of explains to her, because then they give him the line where he's like, where you dumped me, remember, you dumped me.
Yeah.
Because she's talking about like, why do I always get my heart broken? And the way they presented it later really felt to me like he was in the middle of his experience coming out of the closet.
Yeah.
That's when she caught him.
I see.
So she was like the last moment that he had to kind of ask himself, am I gay?
Yeah.
And then based on what their sexual experience was, as they described,
the answer was yes.
It sounds like, yes, he is gay.
That's fair enough. And then he got his own episode later in the series that I really liked. That was actually my favorite episode because I liked him way better than I liked Rob. So I liked spending some time with him.
And I think that's one of the things you can do with a show. Like, did you watch Scrubs?
Not really.
I watched all of it. Even the last season. But one of the things that show is defined by is being in the first person because it's all told through the eyes of Zach Braff's character. He never directly addresses the camera. It's all his thoughts. But one of the things that happens throughout the run of the show is that occasionally the focus will change to another character.
Yeah.
So like his best friend Turk gets an episode and John C. McGinley's like Dr. Cox gets an episode. And I think that's one of the things you can do in a longer running show like this. And I was kind of excited that every season would have, you know, like one character gets to have their episode.
Yeah.
Or we might see it go back and forth a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which now that I think about it, even though House of Cards is dead to me, I feel like that was something they did there.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I was actually really disappointed because he got an episode and then I assumed the next episode was going to be Charisse and then it wasn't. And I really was upset that she didn't get her own episode because she was such a cool character and I really liked her.
I bet if you asked the creators, I bet they would say, oh no, we were going to give Charisse an episode in season 2.
Yeah, like the whole season 2 was going to be about Charisse.
Like maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit. We didn't even talk about whether we liked it in general. I think we both started out not liking it that much.
Yes.
I think I started to like it sooner than you did, but I think by the end we both liked it a lot.
It grew on me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Like, I'm sad that it doesn't have a second season.
Yeah.
Because I like these characters and I want to spend time with these characters, especially Simon.
Yeah.
He's great and fascinating. And Charisse is I think she's the best interpretation of the Barry character.
Yeah.
Like, that isn't Jack Black. I think she's the best version of what that could be.
Yeah.
And not just saying, let's just find a Jack Black type. Because it's not just Jack Black, but Black and a lady. Like, they change so many aspects of the character to make it feel much more natural for her.
Yeah. And I really, something I like not for nothing,
Mhm.
like, I really appreciate it. So this show's set in New York. It's filmed in New York and it looks like New York, in Brooklyn. And I really felt like they did a good job in casting people that felt like people that live in New York.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, as opposed to, like, you watch Friends and it seems like everyone in New York is like white and middle class and lives in a huge apartment. Although I did take it, they all had huge apartments, which is kind of terrible. But
you can't fit a camera crew into a real New York apartment.
Yeah, into a real Brooklyn apartment where she lives by herself on the income from her failing record store.
Yeah.
But it was a cast that felt like a cross section of New York.
Yeah.
It felt like living in New York, which was very, very nice.
I think one of the things that was interesting is that, so of all the characters, how many characters that were in almost every episode were just white, straight men?
Clyde.
Just Clyde. And part of his character is that he's the epitome of a white, straight man.
Yes.
Like,
he goes to his climbing gym.
Like, so Clyde is a new character. That was one of the things that I thought was interesting about the show, is they really took Laura and split Laura up into two characters.
Yeah.
So there's Mac, who is the guy that Rob was with for a period of time. They were engaged. And then they broke up.
Yes.
He left her.
And he's with someone else now.
Yeah. And she's with, they do the thing, like, one of the best lines in the movie is when Rob goes, "What fucking Ian guy?" Because Liz, we didn't even talk about Joan Cusack.
Oh gosh, she's
by
amazing.
the way. Like,
she's so good.
Joan Cusack is the best part of the movie. When I was at that Q&A, that panel interview with John Cusack, someone asked him, like, who's the best actor in your family? And he's like, it's Joan. He wasn't even saying it to be nice. It was clear that he believes it.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She is the best part of High Fidelity. And
are they twins or are they just brother and sister?
No, they're just brother and sister.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But anyway, they take Laura and they break her up into two characters. So one is the person that he was in a relationship with for a while, that she was in a relationship with for a while. That's Mac. And he's this very handsome British guy who also, there's like a new TV miniseries all about James Comey that just came out with, like, Jeff Daniels.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
Brendan Gleeson plays Trump.
Oh, right. You told me about that.
And apparently this actor plays Obama.
Oh, I can see that.
I can totally see that.
He reminded me of the actor who plays the husband in, not to mention Handmaid's Tale again, but he reminded me of him.
O.T.
a little bit.
Fagbenle?
Yeah, because he's also British, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's playing American in Handmaid's
No,
Tale.
I know that, but like they're both British and they kind of resemble each other.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But so he's one part of Laura. Is he's the breakup. Oh no, I was getting back to the whole, like, what fucking Ian guy. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. And in this one, she finds out that from her brother that he's engaged to someone named Lily.
Because her brother, he's best friends.
Yeah. And she has a line where she looks at the camera and goes, "What fucking Lily girl?" The problem is he's been gone for a year.
Yeah, they've been broken up for a year.
So she doesn't really have any call to say, there's no one he knows named Lily. It doesn't really, I don't think it works.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the remix parts that doesn't work.
That didn't work at all for me. And I think that was in the first or second episode. And that at that point, that was like the low point for me of the whole series, where I was like, oh, this doesn't work at all. And it really turned me against it. And it took a while for the series to kind of get me back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the thing that became clear is that the show is at its best when it's not trying hard to be the movie or the book.
Right. I think that's right.
And it's clear, too, that it was an adaptation of the book as much as the movie.
Yeah.
Because there are entire sections in it that are straight from the book that were not, like, to my mind, weren't even ever part of the movie, whether they were a deleted scene or not.
Yeah.
Like, there's the whole, there is the whole episode where they go uptown
to buy the records.
To buy a record collection, which is so that's in the book. It was shot for the movie and then they deleted it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really work
but
that well.
But they put their whole new spin on it. Like, because Clyde is there. He wouldn't have been there in the book because he's a new character.
Well, let's go back to Clyde for a second. So he's the other part of Laura. He's the person that Rob is trying to get together with.
Yes.
Because they go on a date in the first episode, and he is so white. He listens to fish. He goes rock climbing. He loves hikes. He wears vests, like puffy vests.
He picks up dry cleaning.
Yeah, he's super, super white. So getting back to my original point, like the only person in the show who is just a straight white guy, he's there to be a comment on straight white guys.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, this is cool. I like being here with you guys.
And Clyde's great.
Yeah, Clyde's great.
He's one of the best parts of the show. But it's treated at the beginning like he's just going to be a notch in her belt. But he becomes a major character in the show.
Well, because he's the only person she knows who has a car, and then it kind of goes from there.
So they have to go uptown to buy this record. Basically, the version of it, because if you've only seen the movie, you wouldn't know this because it didn't make it into the movie. But basically, Rob gets a call that this woman wants to sell a record collection. He goes and finds it, and it is the most amazing record collection he's ever seen. It's all rare prints. It's amazing. And he says, how much you want for it? And she goes, $20. The value is different in every version. But essentially what's happened is it's her husband's record collection. He's run off with a younger woman, and he needs spending money while he's traveling. And he says, sell my record collection and send me the money. And so she's going to sell it for nothing. And Rob can't do it because he has scruples, and he looks at this collection and goes, I know what it would feel like to have someone sell it for nothing.
He can't bear to do it to another collector.
And so she sells him like one record.
Yeah.
And in this version, they steal one.
Yeah. Clyde steals it.
But like you go from it's a chapter in the book to one scene in the movie that didn't even get put in to an entire episode.
Yeah, it's a whole episode
of the show. And they go, and the wife is Parker Posey.
And they're running all around town, and they go find the husband to make sure he's a piece of shit, which he is.
Yeah, and they just expand it. But like that was one of those moments where I thought the show is trying to do its own thing at this point, and it really works. And that's
that episode kind of got me back. I think that was the one where I was like, okay, this is kind of funny.
And that's the Rob and Clyde show.
Yeah.
That whole episode is just a road movie with Rob and Clyde.
Right.
And it really got me to like Clyde too.
Yeah.
He's great. An actor named Jake Lacey, which I think a lot of people would know from The Office. He's not just a handsome guy. But anyway, they split them up. So in the I'm positive it's in the I'm pretty sure it's in the book. I know it's in the movie. Is Rob and Laura have a conversation where he says like, what's our chance of getting back together? And he presses her and he presses her and he presses her, and finally to get him off her back, she says, fine, there's a 9% chance that we're going to get back together. And in the show, I was really interested to see who that conversation was going to be with, because I felt like it was going to be there.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it was
Clyde.
at the very end of the 10th episode. And yeah, it was Clyde. And it was just so interesting to see that like the direction the show is going in is that Rob is probably not going to get back together with Mac.
No.
The person she wants to be with at this point is Clyde, but they're both Laura.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about it is it's not changing anything from the book. She's still trying to get back with the Laura character. It's just that now Laura's two characters.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I ended up really, really enjoying this show.
It got stronger as it went, which I really appreciated. Yeah. I think you're right. I think when it was weaker, it was weakest when it was trying so hard to be the book.
Yeah.
Because
or the movie really.
Or the movie because like it was trying to depict experiences of characters who are different. Like different than, different than the archetypes that were in the book and the movie. And when you're trying to hew those characters into this mold that they don't really fit, it didn't work as well.
Yeah.
And when you just let those characters be who they are or who they would be in those circumstances, I think it works a lot better.
The one thing that I thought worked perfectly, and I don't know everything that was happening behind the scenes, and I don't want to ascribe all like creative, decisions to one person, but the executive music producer on the show was Questlove. And the music was the thing in the show that worked the best.
Yeah, it was
I
good.
think was translated the best. It really Charisse and the music. Because almost none of the music from the movie or the book was used or referenced.
Yeah.
They picked all new things because it's been 20 or 25 years.
Right.
And it's totally different people and it's a totally different musical environment. But so much of what they talked about made perfect sense for the story.
They were able to draw like exact equivalents of like, okay, they were talking about this musician in the 90s in London, so what would that be today in New York?
Yeah.
What is the equivalent of that? And I think they did a really good job.
My favorite example was the one I mentioned before, where they take Peter Frampton and turn him into Boyz II Men.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect.
It's
I
perfect.
think that's a great example.
Because when the book was written, Boyz II Men was a current artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 I thought that was great. And there's more examples that I think it's not really worth going into, but I think in a general sense, they do a really, really good job. But they also do make specific musical references to the movie. There's like a reference to the Beta Band, and we hear the same song. And I Believe When I Fall in Love.
Yeah, which is now stuck in my head.
Yeah, it's a great fucking song.
It's a good song.
It's referenced in the final episode, and then that's the song, again, that Charisse sings at the end.
Yeah.
Of the whole thing, but does a very like stripped down like acoustic version of it. She's got a really good voice. It would have been great to hear her belt.
I would have loved to hear her sing.
But apparently that was not something we are going to get to hear because the show was canceled. But I think at the end of the day, it's a good show. I think it made good decisions. I don't think it got canceled because it was bad. I think it got really good reviews. I think it just got canceled because no one watched it.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
You know?
Maybe it just came out at the wrong time. Maybe that wasn't what people wanted to see. I know like seeing like people like gather in like bars and restaurants having a good time is not what I like really want to watch for entertainment right now because it just makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I just wonder what it would have been if Zoe Kravitz hadn't been cast as Rob. Because that ended up being my biggest problem with it.
Yeah.
That they sold me on her being a wreck.
Yeah.
Like she's a mess.
Yeah.
And they definitely sold me on that. But she says things that just do not fit with who she is. And again, this goes back to what we've been saying is that when she tries to say the lines that John Cusack said that worked so well when it was his voice coming out of someone that looks like him.
Yeah.
It didn't work in her voice coming out of someone that looks like her.
Yeah.
But there could have been something that would work. And I think if they had taken that extra step to distance themselves even more from the movie, I think that would have made it better.
Yeah, like there's this weird scene where she goes to see her ex-girlfriend and she's having this party for like all the influencers and like she makes her wear this. She's like, "Oh, I got this jacket, but it doesn't look good on me, but it looked really cute on you." And she like sits there wearing this horrible puffy jacket all evening, and it didn't ring true to me that Rob would sit there wearing that jacket. Like that character would just take it off. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It didn't seem that she would be so insecure that she would just sit there being uncomfortable. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
She wasn't that person.
It was really weird the way she kind of was projecting both insecurity but also like intense like confidence at the same time.
Yeah, it was really odd.
I don't know. But I don't know how much of that is us projecting on the fact that it's Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, I have no idea.
This is like incredibly attractive, cool person.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense that she would be insecure, but like I feel like they could easily turn that around and say like,
well, anyone can be insecure.
Anyone can be insecure.
Yeah, I get it, but a lot of her insecurity was based on how other people respond to her, and that didn't track as well to me.
It did. It was a lot of fan service.
Yeah.
It was a lot of I've seen the movie a million times. Every single time a line was mentioned that made me think of it. It took me out of it a little bit. A couple of times it was fun. Like one choice they made, and this goes back to the music choices. There's that great scene in the book, Rob discusses what it would be like to see all of his exes, and he equates it to like a Bruce Springsteen song. And then they made a brilliant decision for the movie to actually have Rob having a conversation with Bruce Springsteen about what that would be like.
Yeah, a little cameo.
The scene's amazing. In this one, it's Debbie Harry.
Yeah.
And I don't think it works as well.
Yeah.
But it's real fucking cool to see Debbie Harry.
Yeah, it was fun.
But like, I think it's a show that's worth seeing. I think anyone should see it.
Yeah.
It's like, especially if you're a fan of High Fidelity. But I don't even think you need to be a fan of High Fidelity to see it.
No.
I think it was a good show.
It was good.
And I don't know about you. I felt like a lot of shows that get canceled don't get to end on a note that feels at all satisfying. Like if they end on a cliffhanger or something like that. If the purpose of the show is here's an asshole who at the very end has finally realized that they need to try to be better because that's what it requires to have empathy for another person.
That did happen.
That does happen at the
Yes.
very, very end.
Yes.
And it's in relation to Clyde.
Yeah, and Charisse.
Yes, and Charisse. Yes, she does a really nice thing for Charisse at the very end. And they've had a very antagonistic relationship the entire time. To me, the show ending there felt okay as the end of like a mini series.
Yep.
I am disappointed because it's clear they wanted to do more, but they didn't get the chance to do that. But I don't think it's the kind of show that ends in an unsatisfying way.
I agree.
Even though it got canceled.
Yeah. Well, let's leave it there.
You want to leave it there?
Yeah. You want to do some quadrants?
Yeah, let's do it. So the movie.
Yeah.
Do you think they cared about the book?
Yes.
Yeah, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all the same words.
It's all the same.
You got to think they liked it. Is it successful?
I mean, you just said it was a perfect movie, so yes, it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that you have to agree with me.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect movie. TV show, did they care about the book?
The book, maybe not as much. There's stuff from the book in it, so maybe, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I think they did care.
And they definitely cared about the movie.
Yes. I mean, did they care more about the movie than the book?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's okay.
But I think they did care about the book.
Yeah.
Was it successful?
I mean, ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
I think we would be remiss in saying it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was successful.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways that you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And third, we are on Patreon. As we mentioned before, we've got a bonus show just for patrons. We have a patron community that's super, super fun. And we would love it if you would be willing to support us there. If not, totally cool. This show will always be this show. I kind of petered out there at the end. I had a drink and I'm tired.
It'll be free. It'll be a free podcast.
The podcast will always be free. That is what the free podcast is, shall remain a free podcast.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Do you have a funny thing to say?
No, I don't. Do you want to go eat some pie?
Oh, we hope. I wanted to do a top 5 for this one.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do.
It'll be okay.
Top 5s are great.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.